Okay. So data sets are expensive, time consuming, and require quite a lot of expertise to acquire. But as perhaps indicated by the Best Paper Award, the need for data sets that capture change is actually very pressing. So that was a paper about creating a simulator so as to measure change, in part because it's very hard to actually acquire data sets that have change, that actually also get access to share the data that is captured in sensitive sites. So we were talking about what kind of value that this would have, and for people who are not so familiar, what kind of use cases there are for regularly monitoring change, identifying clashes, maybe being able to automatically compare versus building models to automate progress monitoring. It's a pretty open-ended topic, but I think even Jingdao and we've discussed the necessity for more realistic data sets that are construction-centric. There are a small number of data sets that are present. Nothing stands still as an example, but even it has a limited number of repeated scanning operations. So I think that there's probably a necessity to identify and maybe a design that's semi-open, or maybe a research-oriented designer. For example, CSIRO is a research lab in Zurich, who are in Switzerland or in Australia, who've developed a very high quality laser scanning system, or handheld laser scanning system, to be able to work to create an initiative to have a multi-sequence start to end project scanning system. I think is an important initiative that we should probably consider as part of the working committee, the IEEE working committee. So that's some thoughts on that. Okay.
All right, so from our group, I'm going to share some discussion points and findings. So one discussion topic was basically in the future construction side, how we're going to balance between full automation versus human-robot collaboration. So there's lots of issues you have to consider. With more automation, we can get perhaps more productivity, but the way industry is structured tends to be more conservative. So maybe you need to do things more incrementally, make incremental changes to existing pipelines so we don't kind of disturb what's already there. Maybe just make incremental changes and then, improve things one by one. And maybe that's more easily adopted by the construction industry. Another discussion topic was basically, heavy versus light machinery. Maybe in some types of machinery, it's easier to achieve full automation, whereas with other types of machinery, perhaps we need more human involvement, more human in the loop types of systems. There was some discussion on foundation models. So we know in natural language processing, in computer vision, the breakthroughs have been driven a lot by foundational models. One models that can, pretty much do everything. So you don't have to do a lot of retraining or fine tuning. Perhaps we need some of those ideas within robotics or even within the construction field as well. There was some discussion on manipulation. So that's kind of one characteristic of construction environments. Instead of robots that are just reacting to the environment, maybe we can actually change the environment through manipulating objects to maybe integrating building information models to the building schedule. We might be able to kind of figure out how to operate a robot in a way that's kind of conducive to the construction schedule. So being able to manipulate the environment or update the schedule or operate the robot in accordance with that schedule. And another discussion point was basically about space robotics. Maybe in the future, we might have to do construction on the moon or construction on Mars. So could be a very exciting future topic. And again, in that application, we may need to be even more conservative, because if we send a robot out into space, we don't want the robot to run into errors or bugs and things like that. So again, another kind of area where we need, like quality control, safety, consider all of those factors. All right, so I think next up we'll have group number 3, mitigating gaps between industry and academia.
Francis will use a note taker, but he will just talk about our research. Yeah.
While we had the active discussion, but I think I can very concisely summarize our major findings from this discussion. And a major gap arises from the difference in the primary focus of industry and academia. Industry needs to make profit anyways, and academia's primary focus is to explore new findings and advanced technologies. So even though industry sometimes relies on the technology development from the academia, but because it needs to make profits, so there may exist some different priorities between them, which causes the very challenging gaps to resolve. So actually, we did not find out potentially effective approach to mitigate these gaps, but I think we could identify there exists these gaps in the reality that we need to further explore. Thank you very much.
I will talk about our last group discussion about the government regulation safety standards. So we have a relatively small group, so we have expertise from the industry talk about the safety standards. And we come with some discussion about, because currently there are different standard regulation from ISO standards and IA and A3NC standards. So they are all different target from the manufacturing and users different perspective. So currently the construction specific for construction robotics, there's doesn't exist for now, but the good thing is right now they are looking into that direction. So more people are getting involved for the construction robotics perspective, especially using the robot in construction site. They are getting more people involved in that direction in the safety standard committee. So that's one step we have been talking about. Another thing is for the industrial perspective, for the safety certification perspective. So the new product needs to get the safety certification from the different standards. And for especially for the construction in new innovative product, a lot of the product, they didn't fall into any type of the category for the existing safety standards category. So there's a lot of challenge for innovative product to be used in the market. So we are talking about this one way maybe we can do is like, for example, make the safety standard more accessible to the industry. And also we also talk about if we can use some waivers, because if we have a new product, like for example, we change the sensors for specific robot, they might fall into a different category, then they might have a different safety regulations. So one solution we discussed is maybe to get a waivers, because that previously was certified. Maybe we can use a waiver to expedite the process instead of using the new safety regulation to those the new products the company developed. And another thing we talked about was because the safety standard was the safety certification process was interpolated by the different safety certificate company. So different people, different consultant, they might have a different interpretation for the safety standards. So solution might be to make the safety standard easier and have more people to get involved of that. And finally, the last one is the risk assessment is another way we can talk about to have some people oversee the product being used on construction project, and then to do the risk assessment from the beginning, and so that throughout the project they can make sure it is safe to compile the safety requirement. So that's some of the discussion we have been done.
Okay, great. So that's all we have for today's workshop. Thank you everyone for coming.